Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunashume, washmole. Ohaya gozaima's, guten Morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal, halishuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabi, aballi kare aya, hosh kyalin, anayo sayo. And thank you very much everybody for tuning in to PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Haja Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me. So, I was strolling through my social media, and I came across a very interesting term called quiet quitting. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I did, because I did hear about this very term when you shared it in our WhatsApp group while we were getting ready for the topic today.
Oh, okay. So, this is the concept that I found really interesting, and it found a lot of subscribers on TikTok. And it's not about, quitting your job. It's about, not going above and below, while performing your duties at the job. And a lot of people say that, especially, after the pandemic, this has become a trend that, the work has become your life, because, you are sitting from the remote areas and you are working there. So a lot of people are saying that they are, going to work, what their, the job demands of them, from 9 to 5 or whatever their job timings are. But again, and their motto is, wage your job out, right? The amount that you are paid, just work, that in order to get paid, do not go above and over that. But a lot of people say that, there's some, who are following just the trend. Or is there a genuine risk of the work burnout? What do you have to say?
I think in addition to that, I would like to add over here where when we talk about quiet quitting, I think it has existed before this very term was coined.
Right.
Because, when you go to multinationals, when you go abroad, when you go to other countries, you see how they, or the employer will never ask you to, sit beyond the time you're actually supposed to be in the office. In fact, when we talk about Finland, they have shortened the working week to 4 days a week as well.
That's true.
So, that practice was over there. But yes, I think this term is really useful for all of those people who've been working day in, day out, but all their efforts have not been recognized by their employer too as well. And that the wage they deserve, when they do not get it, they're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to come to the work and make sure that, I work till 5 o'clock and that's it. Afterwards, you're not asking me anything for anything at the same time as well. But for all of those employers who are out there, I think it's a red flag for you people, because then the efficiency is going to go down. And once the efficiency starts to go down, the business will definitely not flourish the way it was supposed to flourish. So the people fulfilling your dreams, you really need to fulfill their needs.
And there was a very interesting, Gallup poll that was shared that, on-job stress was 38% in 2019 and it rose to 43% in 2021.
Yeah.
But I think I do agree with your thought that, it was always there, but, we didn't, understood it, or it was not there in our social discourse. But these things are now being discussed because, there's more awareness surrounding this.
Exactly. And, in addition to that, what I would want to say over here is that, your family will never know what pressures you're going through, and your work will never know what family pressures you're going through. So it's always you who needs to pat on your back and keep on going on, so that you keep that direction in your life and you achieve your goals. Because for me, it's never about the destiny. I'm always in love with the journey, and I always make sure that wherever I am, whichever path I'm going from, whatever path I'm trotting on, I will always make sure to be in love with that. It's the apparatus, because, for example, if you are going to be in love with your destiny, once you reach there, you might not have that content within your own self as well. So love each and every step of your career, your path, your family life, and you will eventually be happy too as well. But very quickly, I just want to say over here something which is very short and brief, and that is that, ever since we were growing up, we were given this mindset from the generation of 80s and 90s, for example, our parents, that if you're not going to study, putta tu chaprasi lag jayega. Okay, for the English speaking audiences, that you might not even land a good job for yourself, you might not be able to live a good quality of life, or probably, whatever you need in life to actually just be relaxed. So I think that mindset needs to change. I think that people really need to come forward, and the parents really need to mentor their kids in a way where they tell them, hey, you know what, you can create job opportunities for other people by being an entrepreneur.
Right, and very lightly, I would like to, share a news here which I read on The Guardian. So ex, Tory PM of the UK Tony Blair actually said that we need to, dismantle or, revamp the OA level system, because he says that it's not designed to compete in a modern digitalized world, where jobs are not always dependent upon your degrees, but upon your talent and the skill sets. But, we will venture more into it.
You know what? They got Tony Blair to say that, and there's a reason why they've done that as well. Because from O levels and A levels, now we have actually moved on to international baccalaureate. Okay. Now imagine for a student who was going to attend an O levels or A levels class, you were already paying $1.5 million for a year, so that your child can actually get through the Cambridge exams or the Oxford exams too as well. Now for international baccalaureate, Alhamdulillah, you have to pay 3 million rupees, so it's another business model. They've got other people. So we will talk about it. We will talk about whether skill set is important or not. But before that, I think it's really time for us to look into how the flood conditions are and what the international community is doing and what we are doing in accordance with the United Nations as well. So let's go. Haja, what do we have first up?
Okay, so Pakistan and the United Nations have jointly launched 2022 Pakistan Floods Response Plan simultaneously in Islamabad and Geneva, urging the international community to support the government of Pakistan in scaling up and expanding its relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts in the flood-affected areas. The United Nations issued a flash appeal for $160 million to help Pakistan cope up with the catastrophic floods. Very well, and there is this debate going on, and it is championed by the Global South, especially by our minister, by Ms. Sherry Rahman, who happens to be climate change minister. And she said that this climate change, these floodings that we are experiencing right now, and it is creating so much havoc to our economy, is not our creation in the first place, right? True. And we need to do more, more than pledges and more than these conferences, so that there is a mechanism, a restructured mechanism in place, to help people in the Global South, which are already in need,
And I like the vision of Ms. Sherry Rahman over here, and it's because that, it's totally not because of us that all of these floods are over here in Pakistan. The climate change, obviously it is for real. And, the world leaders, they're coming up by saying that it's us who have actually caused this catastrophe for Pakistan too as well. And it is their responsibility to come forward. And when we talk about coming forward, I think that our Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Mia Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif Saab, with his soft diplomacy skills, with his efficiency, making sure that he's going to reach out to the audiences all over Pakistan and to the people who've been affected. I think that the kind of welfare services are being provided by the government at this point of time. I've never seen them before too as well. So in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, now this is why I love my Prime Minister. And it's not because that I'm on PTV, but the work shows, the action speaks louder than words too as well. So imagine Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif lauds support of international community for the flood-affected people of Pakistan. Interacts with international media. Prime Minister says provincial governments and armed forces are fully committed to rescue people. Now this is the bit where you really need to love your Prime Minister, because apart from any disagreement from the provincial governments, they're still focusing on how we as a nation needs to unite together as well. And Prime Minister says the intensity of the current flood is much stronger than 2010. Millions of people have been displaced. People need food, water in flood-hit areas. The Prime Minister said international community, particularly the developed world, should not leave the developing countries like Pakistan at the mercy of climate change. And that's true.
That's also true. And Shahzad, the situation is very rapidly deteriorating. The numbers are very rapidly changing. So how many people are affected by it? So I think our Mrs. Sherry Rahman, our climate change minister, told us that 1/3 of the country is submerged in the water. And this is very concerning to a nation like us, because we are an agrarian sort of an economy, and a lot of our GDP is dependent upon that. But these flash floodings has very exacerbated this sort of situation. And to elaborate more on this, and how flooding is affecting us, and how it's detrimental towards our country, we have a very comprehensive package.
Exactly. And before we move on to the package, I think what we have done is that we will move on to the other segment and talk about all of this. But we really need to talk about the role youngsters need to play, the role young Pakistanis need to play, because when we talk about our country, ladies and gentlemen, 60 or more percentage of the people are youngsters. Imagine when we say that 33 million people have been affected by floods. I think these youngsters really need to play a role. How can they play a role? Number one, How can they get a job? Number 2. Number 3, do you think that skill set is more important than education, or is it always education first and then the skill set? And to answer all of these questions, we're lucky that I've been joined by somebody who happens to be friends with all of my childhood buddies, and he's a PhD doctor already, alhamdulillah. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think you might have been the best one amongst us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Dr. Ali Raza Nemati. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
I'm absolutely fine, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have a friend from our bunch who actually happens to be a PhD doctor.
Thank you so much.
I'm super proud of you. Wonderful. You did a great job. And alongside him, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a youth development expert. He is Mr. Atiq Raja. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
So for somebody to be a youth development expert, why do you miss the flair of being a youngster yourself as well? You know, so once again, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Walaikum salam. Excellent.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. So let's get started with the conversation. First things first, I want you to shed light on how youngsters can play a role in these tough times when we have a catastrophe, when we have 33 million people affected by floods in the country.
Well, when we need people, like we need workforce, and these youngsters are the biggest workforce for any country, for any nation, and we are always very lively with respect to whenever we face any catastrophe and any calamity in any place, right? So as a nation, we are very confident with respect to youngsters playing a role, especially now this is a digital world, so they are playing a bigger role now with hashtags, with trends, on the Twitter, and even now I've seen the international media noticing our trends that youth and the youth age is generating on Twitter and LinkedIn, even on Facebook as well, right? So they are playing a role digitally. However, they are playing a role themselves as well on the streets, on the cities, in the provinces, right? So I believe they've got a bigger role to play in Pakistan.
Exactly. Wonderful. Atiq bhai, what would you say?
You're right. I think that, at this stage, even the government's, all the plans and designs are very much there for the youth. And I see the youngsters moving around, doing a lot of activities, especially in the relief. You can see through the digital media, they are very active. They are going, couple of days back, I was observing that from different cities, those activists from Lahore, from Faisalabad, Karachi, they are going towards, Balochistan, the areas badly hit. And here it is that where the government and the youth together can definitely play a vital role for the relief.
Exactly. And we really need to do so as well.
Right.
And it really needs to be youngsters mobilizing other youngsters too as well and playing that role. But now let's come down to what we are here to discuss. Now, so I've said whether it's the education which is important, because we're certainly going to talk about, is it really important for us to be an entrepreneur or to actually seek for a job? Because we belong to a category where our parents always kept on telling us, beta naukri nahi milegi, naukri nahi milegi. So what's your take on this?
Well, since childhood I've listened that, right? So, we always jump to a conclusion.
Yeah.
We always jump to a conclusion. For example, if I say right now to Shehzad, if I ask you a question and anybody is listening to us may attempt that question as well. Shehzad, what is the half of 13?
What is the half of 13? It's, I believe, 6.5.
Right. So Shehzad jumped to a conclusion, went for an equation, divided 13 by 2. However, it can be third or teen. It can be anything, right? For example, if I say, what is the half of this table? You won't divide this table by 2.
True.
Right? So we always, whatever, this is what we call
just
as...
calling to cut it in half.
Yes, but you won't divide it by 2, right?
True.
So this is how we enter in a primacy effect. We call it a primacy effect.
True.
Whatever goes into my mind for the very first time, that is carried by us as a luggage throughout our life.
True.
Right? And if I ask another question, and if the audience seeing me and also both you participate, right? If I pronounce an alphabet in English, and whatever the first word that comes to your mind, you speak out loud. And the word should be able to be spoken on the TV, right?
Obviously, that's what we are responsible for.
So 1, 2, 3. C for
you have a cat.
Cat.
Yeah.
So everybody might have thought about cat, right? This is the reason why we could have said chair, check, card, anything, right?
Oh, so you want us to be creative?
No, it is the first thing that went into our mind. Our parents feed us that you need to find a job.
True.
That's true.
You don't need to give a job, so we always try to finding a job, and this is a vicious circle we all are around in the world.
That's how we are wired.
Yes, we are. This is what we call primacy effect.
True.
And for this, we need to unlearn and relearn.
Yeah.
Until or unless we cannot shift our mind towards finding a job and towards giving a job.
So would we still know that C is for cat?
No, it can be anything else.
When we unlearn, and then when we learn again, so C might become cheers, right?
No, it can be, we may start thinking about giving an answer or jumping to a conclusion.
True.
Right, lovely. So I would move to Atiq Saab. So digital footprint is your new CV nowadays, right? And I think you need to be very careful on what goes on to your social media accounts on the Twitter, because when people are hiring you as an employee, they might surf your social media and they get a fair idea of of your personality. I'm not saying it's the entirely representative of your personality, but it might reveal a lot of aspects of your personality. So how do you think how can we minimize the sort of damage that we might unintentionally put into our CV when it comes to the use of social media?
Yeah.
It's really a very interesting question, but I see the two aspects out of it. As Shehzad earlier we were speaking of the recording, that maturity of age comes time to time.
Yeah.
Right.
It takes time, and once we are, let's say that 5 years back, whatever we have uploaded, when we see after 5 years, we say, oh my God, it's not me.
Think about your passwords from the old email addresses or your email addresses for that matter.
Right, and there again, but still I said that there the proper guidance can help us out. If our mentors tell us that, see, oh, your social media can be looked upon, like the US Embassy is doing nowadays when you apply for the visa, they go to check your social
Right.
And
media.
they
what
already
you-
know all about G.
Right, and before you go, they know that who you are, what you have been doing, where you have been going through.
Yeah.
So I think that the role of mentors is a lot here at that stage, because you are graduating, you are being guided that how you have to have the use of social media. It can become your CV,
Right.
and that can be definitely
And
helping us.
which is why I'm going to make it a little more interesting, because for me, I upload my shows, pictures and whatnot. So I'm very sorry, Hajra, but I'm going to read the last tweet you've shared on Twitter.
Okay.
And then I am to ask you
Okay.
whether how do you think that anybody would think about your tweet, okay?
Okay.
So this is a clip from our show World This Morning on Hajra Sati's Twitter handle. And she says, I've always knack for a decolonization field. Nelson Mandela deconstructed the racist nature of democracy as manifestation of white man burden. Wow. No, I think it's both extremes. You really need to be somewhere where you're welcoming for the other person too as well, and then at the same time the other person should not get scared of you. So first your take, and then we'll move on.
Okay, so I think I'm very in that sense I'm very careful about tweeting stuff, because I know that it can
people
land
are watching.
It can land me in hot waters, and I don't use Twitter for that matter very frequently. I use Instagram more when it comes to that, and also so I have that sort of a knack where I share very intellectual sort of things on the social media.
Yeah.
So that would build my profile in that respect, and I want people to see me in that
The
respect.
intellectual side. So
Right.
you want to share with people your intellect, and you
Right.
want people to see that and observe that as well.
Right.
Now imagine you being an expert. How do you think any employer would feel about seeing so much of intellect rather than a skill set?
Well-
I'm not imposing that, God forbid, there's no skill set. I mean, she's
I
doing a
don't
great
think
job.
so.
Yeah, just asking.
It's a good question, right? But before that, if I summarize it in a way that if anybody who gets 8 hours to cut on a tree, spend 6 hours in sharpening your axe, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be smarter these days than being a hard worker.
Okay.
And I no way, on the TV I say that you don't need to work hard. You need to work hard.
Smart.
However, you need to also work smart,
Yeah.
right? So if you need to shine like a sun, you need to burn yourself like a sun. This is hard work, right? But you need to find ways, right? Bill Gates always say that I hire people who are right, who are smart, right? So we need to be smarter. So now I talk about intellect, right? If I gauge intellect with the education you get, only, right? So this is not only sufficient to be successful in life. You need to be able to have skill set, right? And we call it a three-dimension thing. That is attitude, knowledge, and skill set.
Yeah.
Right.
Attitude, knowledge, and skill set, right? So there's a theory, we call it a persuasion theory, right? I'll just be very precise.
Right.
So now, but I was talking before,
Right.
this is a 3-model theory, and it's very easier for everybody to understand, right?
Yep.
That is communication, that leads to attitude, and that leads to behavior.
Right.
So the communication that went in our mind, पुत्र नौकरी करनी है,
नौकरी
right?
करनी।
You need to have a job.
नौकरी मिलेगी नहीं।
नौकरी मिलेगी नहीं,
पढ़ेगा
नौकरी-
नहीं
right? So you need to have a job, right? So this goes into our mind, the communication, and we will never proceed ourselves with respect to getting skill set. Rather, it's more education, the degrees, right?
True.
The only degrees, right?
Right, right.
I'll feel that, of course, if I'm sitting here, or if anybody seeing me here, He may feel that, of course, he needs to be a PhD to be sitting here.
Right.
However, we may need some skill sets to speak at least. That is communication.
True.
Right.
And again, and now that that communication leads to attitude.
Okay.
And then that leads to behavior, right? So communication is, there's an, don't go in that room, this is dark, right? That goes into your mind. That fear is your attitude, and behavior is getting fearful about that dark.
But that's, I think that's the other bit of communication. So I want you, Mr. Atik, to kind of shed light on this as well, because communication is two-way, right? So when you go to somebody and you say whatever you want to say, it's good. You feel relaxed, you feel relieved too as well. But as soon as the other person starts talking back, that's when the problem is, because everybody has to say something, right?
Definitely, definitely.
So what do we do about that?
Right. Coming to your question before, I would like to add up here, as Mr. Nemthi said, see that we have the culture in Pakistan that from the childhood we have been taught that you have to come to the government job. Government naukri is very much important. Afsar ban jana hai. So now there's a point that we have to have the change in that mindset that everybody cannot be a government officer or a government employee. Government cannot accommodate
You can feel like one.
right? And apart from that, even you talk about the private jobs. I feel that a private job, if you are working for any company, you are a one person.
True.
But as he said, when you are an entrepreneur, when you are giving the jobs, it means you are delivering to your countries at the bigger level.
Very right.
And that is very important. The second thing I just got here, that is about the skill and the intellect, right? We see a lot of people, they develop the skill, but they are missing the intellect.
Okay.
Right? Now here is the education and the skill. Skill is very important. I say that especially our youngsters, they need to develop the skills more and more. We know the people, I see that they learn the graphic designing, they learn the small kind of skills in 3-4 months, and they are earning like 50,000, 1 lakh, a salary equal to 17 grade in the government job. While on the other hand side, still they need to be working on their education, because the intellect would come with an education. As you will be improving your education, definitely that skill would be helping you, and the level of intellect will increase.
I'm sorry, I'm going to add on, and Hajra had a question.
Right.
But I'm going to debunk this theory, and it's because of the fact that we do have P4 Pakau, who's making millions over the internet. There's no intellect in his content. We need to talk about Ganji Swag. There's no intellect in their content. We need to talk about all of these YouTubers. We need to talk about all of those YouTubing kids who are only 9 years old. We cannot even expect intellect from them. They're the richest kids in the world. So intellect and education does not have to do with anything what you have in your bank account. I think it's the distribution by Allah Almighty, and we really need to agree with that.
I think, the education imparts you sort of wisdom. It impairs you when it comes to
But
that.
that's
It
not the
polishes-
only source now. That's
It
what I'm saying.
polishes.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me-
yeah. If you can't read a book, how can you get wisdom from
Let me-
that?
Imagine you can say whatever you want to say. You really do not need to read a
But
book.
I think
to start to talk to somebody, you really do not need to know how to read, right?
I think earning money is one thing, but how you earn it, what sort of ethics are going into it. So a lot of time I do feel that they're YouTubers, they're excessive users of the consumerism when it comes to that. They do not always preach what is right, what is wrong when it comes to that. And I do feel that there are a lot of problems that are coming into our society because of that. So I think education is important.
It is. I'm not saying that education is not important. But what we're trying to imply over here is, how do you think that we get a mix of everything, every flavor, so that we're successful in life? That's what we
First, I would like to second Shehzad, for one thing, right? It is said that if you put yourself on fire, people from 1,000 miles come to see you burn, right?
Right.
So people on the YouTube, they're putting on themselves fire, with respect to the enthusiasm they carry, the passion they carry, and the speaking skills they have, right? To speak in front of people, right? If you ask around 100 people that what is your biggest fear, they don't say cockroaches, they don't say lizards, they don't say rats. It's speaking to a group. They feel it difficult to talk about. So now, if I come about having a skill set, I believe that we need to have a blend of education and skill set.
Yep.
Any one missing link may backfire you.
True.
This is very important, right?
Or it might expose you even,
Right.
and for that I have an
Right.
example too as well. That film Leonardo DiCaprio acted in. Great Gatsby.
Catch me if you can.
Yeah, Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Because Great Gatsby, he wasn't educated, but he got all the millions from this other gentleman who died, who was living all by himself.
But how
And-
many people are lucky like him, Shehzad?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say over here is that one day, God forbid, if you miss any of these flavors,
Right.
you might be exposed. And then from there onwards, God forbid, it can be a downfall as well. So very quickly towards the end, what is your formula of making sure that how we train ourselves as a person which is more reliable for the employer, which is more apple of the eye for that employer out there as well, and that he or she totally relies on us as an employee.
Right. To my understanding, my observations, exposures by seeing the market as well as the youngsters, I would just, second one thing, that we all communicate, but we need to have the effective communication. That is very important. And seeing the employer, definitely the skill matters, right? I believe that we must have the mindset of lifelong learning. We should keep developing our skills, but beside that, we must not ignore the education. Because I take it education as a fuel, that you are keep giving the fuel to your skill, and definitely the time would come that after a year, 2 years, 3 years, a person having only a skill cannot be meeting the person having a skill as well as the education.
So God forbid if somebody is going to tell them to write an email to somebody, he'll be like, sir, main ab kaise? Mujhe to bas yahi aata hai.
That's it. And I would like to add up to both of yours this point as well, that definitely people get the chance in the social media, and nowadays they are boosting.
Because there's no prerequisite, na.
But the content matters. You can just go through it, you will check it out that, oh, the content is missing there. So we have to work harder on that thing, that beside that skill, we need to have the content.
And very quickly, how do you think, towards the end of this segment, how do you think that we can mobilize our youngsters? Because we spoke about floodings too as well, and how people are coming forward, and how do you think we can effectively use social media?
Excellent. When I got this point, topic by the producer, I was having the, different websites, checking out. Then before sleeping, I had the brainstorming. Because see, the context changes. When the same flood comes to Africa, the things are different. When it comes to Europe, it's different. Talking about the Pakistani youth, the point number one, I feel at this stage, we need hope. Right? Everywhere we find out a lot of criticism on this, on that. So please come up with the hope. We can, if, when we get up early in the morning, the first thing I check, I put on my hand on the heart and I feel, oh my God, I'm still alive.
Shukran.
You got a
Don't
life,
you realize it when you open your eyes?
Oh, yeah. Right? Now, here the thing is that, many have lost the lives. We have got the big, casualties everywhere. So if Allah has given us a new life, it means we have to give that life to others as well. We have to tell the people around us that, oh, be hopeful, everything would be positive.
And feel the pain of others.
Feel the pain of others. Second thing, see, it is a role of youngster as a leader. Make the groups, everyone have something, everybody knows something, how to contribute. Do not need to wait for the government, do not need to wait for the NGOs, there is no need to wait for others. You should be prepared in that grouping, that how we can be the partners with those people who are coming to join us, to give us reliefs, to rehabilitate us.
Wonderful.
Right? And finally here I would say that we have to work a little harder on something, that is our emotional part. Definitely everybody is going through the pain. The whole lives, gathering, whole lives, earning, whole lives that whatever they had, once you lose it, when you don't have it anymore, you are, at that stage, there's a need that we have to help each other, we have to sit with each other, we have to make each other understand. That's it. So once again.
What about you?
Well, absolutely right. Again, very easily summarized. The only thing we face as a society, right? I would like to summarize in a couple of minutes, right? Because you're running out of time. Is the topic I had was entrepreneurship, right? So I would like to focus on entrepreneurship. Whenever we face calamity like COVID or these floods, normally people lose jobs because the companies are unable to get revenue out of that, right? So there can be three things a person can get be entrepreneur, right? So the audience may see that any of the three things may push you. That it is said that even an eagle needs a push. So of course, can push you to become an entrepreneur. Now, one is need for achievement. I should not be called a son of a doctor, rather I should be called Ali Nemati, right? This is a need for achievement, right? You have. Second is need for independence. I do not want to work under a boss. I cannot get up at around 8 a.m. in the morning, right? So this is need for achievement, need for independence. Third is financial rewards. Do you see a person getting a salary is a millionaire or a billionaire? Never. All across the world. Only investors. The businessmen, right? So only the entrepreneurs, right? So find the niche for you, any of the three, become an entrepreneur. Once you become an entrepreneur, the society can be helped with these youngsters once they become an entrepreneur, start giving jobs, whether these are remote, whether these are live, so that they should not be dependent on the people and do not be parasites on the society, right? So these calamities can be handled really well because the biggest worry you have is livelihood.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Nemti Saab. Thank you very much, Ateek Bhai, for being with us. And you know, this point which Nemti Saab touched upon, let me very clearly tell you that, you know, I think it is about Apple CEO, right? So Apple CEO almost earns 60 to 70 million around the year, but imagine this gentleman who's actually invested in Apple and 500 million a year. You know, so you really need to be an investor. But we're going for a short break. Don't go anywhere. When you guys come back, we're actually going to look towards Japan, because they are the most prone to such natural catastrophes as well. When we talk about tsunamis or earthquakes, how do they prepare themselves for such natural calamities and how do they recover from it is something we are talking about. Good morning. Stay with us.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Welcome back. And you know, we were talking about hope because I think this is the narrative that we need to take into the account, especially when we are talking about flooding and when we're talking about the catastrophe, because Pakistan, I think, is the one of the ground zero for the climate catastrophe, which we are now facing nowadays, right? And I think especially when it comes to PTV, I really take a lot of pride when it comes to that, because, you know, we take a lot of, you know, things in that way and, you know, turn the debate around in which we project hope, because hope is one of the most important important things which we need, especially in such sort of calamities. And flooding is one of such the aspects. Hope means, that, you volunteer out for the people out there, because helping, is your sort of a debt for living on this, planet Earth. And also, our leaders are very active. They are propagating that, we need to help out the people. They are on the ground, meeting people out there and making sure that, people do not feel left out. And I said it, yesterday and the day before it, that it's very important that, the people who are affected by that, they feel the presence of the state, they feel the presence of their leader, and it's very important. And I do feel that our nation is doing very good when it comes to that, when it comes to the resiliency. Yes, Shehzad, you have to add something about
exactly, which is why, what we have done is that our team is in all entirety has actually put together a report which we want to share with you all, that what initiatives have been taken for all of those people affected by the flood. So please go ahead, take a look, and once you guys will come back, we are going to head out to Japan. Let's do this.
Pakistan is enduring deadly impact of climate change as half the country is submerged in raging floodwaters that have taken hundreds of lives and caused widespread destruction of crops, livestock and infrastructure. According to data released by National Disaster Management Authority, 75 people died and 59 others were injured during the last 24 hours, raising the overall death toll from floods to 1,136. In order to grapple with climate-induced disaster in the future, the 2022 Pakistan Flood Response Plan is being launched by the government of Pakistan and the United Nations simultaneously in Islamabad and Geneva. Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations, Munir Akram, called on Secretary General of United Nations, Antonio Guterres, in New York and briefed him on the tragic and devastating impacts of the floods in Pakistan. Planning Minister Ehsan Iqbal revealed that Pakistan needs more than $10 billion to repair and rebuild infrastructure damaged by monsoon rains. Finance Minister Miftah Ismail has also estimated that the economic impact of floods would be at least $10 billion, which roughly translates to 3% of the country's gross domestic product. In continuation of the ongoing flood relief operations, flights from the UAE, Turkey and China will be landing in Pakistan to dispatch relief goods for displaced masses. The government of Pakistan is ensuring the provision of timely relief and emergency measures, essential supplies such as medicines, water purifying tablets, tents and food.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now as promised, we're going to head out to somebody who actually is visiting Pakistan. He happens to be a Japanese Pakistani. He's been over there for the last 3 decades. And Japan, when we talk about a country on this map or on this globe, we do know that it is more prone to such natural catastrophes as well. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a journalist in Japan. He happens to be Mr. Humayu Mughal. Hello, sir. Ohayo gozaimasu. Ganki desu ka?
Genki desu ka?
How are you, sir?
Yes, thank you very much. After a long time to see you here,
Likewise, sir, likewise.
Yes,
thank you very much for joining us.
I've been here, and really I enjoyed talking on the PTV board and giving the reports, everything.
And it's wonderful to have you over here as well. Every time you're in Pakistan, you take out time, and it's so good to get to know about the culture of Japan, because most of the time I am importing my cars from Japan.
That's good.
So I do, and the best part about Japanese people is very honest. Dead honest people, and whatever they are promising you, that's what you're going to get.
And they're very punctual also. Especially their bullet trains and the punctuality
so
of
they know that what the time is when the bullet train arrives.
Yes.
But so very quickly, let's come down to, we obviously know that it's a very sad state of affairs over here in Pakistan. More than 1,100 people have died in the recent floods. And when we look at Japan, whenever, God forbid, if it was tsunami or an earthquake, we do see how within an year's time, they recover from it, they build back stronger, and so there's no comparison about the preparedness they have, and we over here do lack that preparedness, and unfortunately this time around it is worse than the 2010 floods as well. So how do Japan plan for their preparedness? How do they, or are they always ready for such a catastrophe?
Yeah, actually, I'm living more than 38 years in Japan, and I also experienced the tsunami. I was there there was earthquake there.
Eventually, you started to look like a Japanese too as well.
Really. So that's why, I experienced that kind of stuff. So I can feel this, this painful feeling of the Pakistani people. That's why today, I'm here to make a documentary actually about this flood, So I'm going to show on my Japanese media, and a lot of the Japanese NGOs want to come here actually. So they send me, you go, and I'm just going to make a documentary. I'll show them. So most of the Japanese people, they are very well educated about this,
catastrophe,
tsunami or whatever. So every month, we have training.
Okay.
My children also training if earthquake comes. Mostly the Japan is an earthquake country,
Yes.
So we are already prepared mentally. So that's why they can handle it very well. And the education is very important, So I think in Pakistan we need to educate them to, how to survive when you survive.
Yeah.
But mostly we believe in religion, we make Allah see everything depend on God.
Right.
But Japan, Japanese say, okay, God is also help us, but somehow we have to help each other as a humanitarian.
I think that is one of the very fundamental aspect of our religion also, because Allah says that He's going to help those, who will help themselves. Yeah, it's ingrained in our, religious philosophy when it comes to that. So, our producer Saab was briefing us about, how there's a Tanaba festival in Japan, where after the catastrophe, after the calamity, they all gathered there, and it's mostly about hope and, how they look out for each other and learn from each other and help out each other. So, do you want to shed some light on that?
Yes, mostly, after, when you get decided, a lot of my friends, they get, victim in the tsunami when
they're
displaced. They're displaced, they have no home. But the community is very, lovely. They make it, Tsunami means how to join the human relation to each other. So they became, we are the family. They get together, especially they get to cut the tree and get it together, making fires and cooking, everything. So we don't feel that we are stranger. Everybody is like a family. We feel he's my brother, he's my sister, he's my aunt, he's my grandmother. So this kind of education, Japanese, they teach them when they was in the primary school or middle school. They call it moral and ethics education.
All right.
So this is very important, to love your neighbor, help your neighbor, So this kind of, the Tanaba is like to how to make you, this because they lose their families, I lose my lot of friends, in tsunami. We went there, especially with Pakistan Embassy helping us. We go and cook there and feeding them, and they enjoy it. Oh, Pakistani people come. We say, no, we are also family of you, because we live there,
True.
Our Japanese wives are there, our children are Japanese. So somehow we have to make this Tanaba is a kizuna. Kizuna means tie up your heart relationship to each other.
Lovely.
Kizuna.
This is how, they build, I think, the fraternity, the brotherhood, and, the love and the harmony around it, right, when it comes to that. So you are a journalist, right?
Yes.
You have been reporting there, and then you also are familiar with Pakistani culture when it comes to that. So, and you've seen, how media is giving coverage to the flood. Even after when, the damage has been done, there was not very much debate or discourse on that when it comes to that. So how do you think we, in the people who are actually in the media, can help out those, who are affected by the flooding, especially when it comes to, creating a narrative out of it?
Especially, I'm always watching the Japanese, Pakistani media in Japan, So mostly is most of people are using as a political issues, So they just want to make publicize their own political things, not helping by heart, So I just give them, some suggestion that when you are using this container for your political reason, put this 100 container to there. Container is the best house, I think. They can save life. They can save their, it's like a home.
True.
And especially in Japan also, what the government do, they put the container house, more than thousands of container house. So this is the point I think that not the government is, very weak. Our government is not so financial problem, but these political people that are, the rich people, what can do, I think they can buy 2 or 3 container.
And in addition to that, sir, since you've mentioned that, I believe that it's a brilliant idea, because every time we really need to block some roads, all we're using is containers. So why not provide people with containers rather than tents? And I think it will be more than sufficient for them. But in addition to that, there's one more problem. Now, this other problem is of trust. Now, when we talk about people in Japan, I mean, for all of those friends I have in Japan, or people who've been traveling from Japan to over here, they've been telling me, and I have had these business relations with them where I've always found them dead honest, always on time, whatever they commit for, that's what you're going to get. Unfortunately, over here in these times, we have seen that these public messages, which are all over the social media or the media, the conventional media as well, The problem is of trust. People want to donate,
Yes.
people want
But
to
they
do
have
their
no
best,
trust,
but
yes.
they do not trust these NGOs.
Yes.
Because just very recently as well, not very recent, I think we go back in time 3-4 years ago, you know, a lot of NGOs were shut down
Yes.
because of their malpractices.
That's why.
How do we get that element of trust into all of these NGOs so that people start to believe in them, that whatever we are sacrificing, our chunk of hard work, you know, it's going to get down to the very real asset?
That's why, you know, because when there was in Kashmir, there was earthquake in Balochistan and Balakot, you know, I brought more than 50 NGOs to Japan. Because how we bring that? Because first they send me to report them that true where wood can put. They bring their food by hand and they distribute by themselves. So they said we send the money, but you don't know money where it goes. They come here. I took them to the market. They buy the rice and everything, the oils and everything. We give them food by hand. So a lot of the Japanese students, you know, they come with me. So this is, 30 years we have been doing this. NGOs, MPOs, how to help Pakistan. Because we Pakistani was helping to the in tsunami time.
True.
Now they also ask me that, Mr. Mughal, go.
How did we reach out to Japanese, you know, when it was tsunami and they were badly struck by tsunami?
Yeah, actually, when tsunami came, most of people run away from there because there is a nuclear, plant was there, and they're afraid. But most of Pakistani, we have believe in God. We believe in Allah. No, we rush to there. We took a lot of the rich people give us the meat and halal food, but Japanese don't know how to cook it.
Yeah.
And finally, we cooked it and we feed them.
Mashallah.
And they say, oh, we can enjoy the Pakistani food. Oh, Pakistani people are very great. And the Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Abe, he appreciated it. Royal family appreciated to the Pakistan.
Wow.
And Pakistan embassy makes lot of this exhibition and showing how Pakistan is helping to the Japan. So same like now we have been helping them. Now they have the heart of helping to the Pakistan. They feel they love Pakistan actually. So they want to come. So maybe in future I'll bring them 2 or 3 NGOs.
Sure.
And it's matter of trust, but they trust me actually, and I trust to the people, and by hand.
And even if it's not NGOs, just bring in your Japanese friends. We would
Yes,
love to
yes,
host them
yes,
any
of
day,
course.
any single day,
Yes.
and we will feed them with biryani,
Yes, that's good.
mutton kadai, and whatever you wish for too as well. But thank you very much, Mr. Mayo,
Thank
for
you.
being with us. It's always lovely to be in conversation. But very quickly, there's this question which has always been in my heart today. I want to ask it. So every time you're on the show, you always have this red scarf on you.
Yes.
What is the significance of this red scarf?
Actually, Red Cross it gives you the energy,
Okay.
So mostly, people are making a green after. But actually, I learned from Mr. Antonio Inoki, he's a wrestler.
Okay.
I was his coordinator 30 years.
Wow.
So it's his costume. So whenever he's come in the ring, when he says, Genki desu ka? It means people get energy.
But a wrestler might only wear a scarf, na?
We never miss Yes. But it's like a show time, it's a show business.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mayur bhai, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation. And very sorry. Why don't you take it forward?
Okay, so I always say that cross-cultural communications are always good, because especially in the times of calamity, because people want to help out, people want to reach out, and this is very important that we have Pakistan expat community in Japan, and they want to reach out, and they're very helping especially the people who are in the dire need when it comes to that. And also Shahzad shared a tweet from one of the Japanese political leadership, where they actually reiterated this point that this calamity is not because of the the natural disaster. It was a human-made calamity, right, because of the climate change. And
So once again, towards the end, I think it's Genki Diska. Thank you very much, people, for tuning in. Wahai Gazaimus. Until the next time, look after yourselves. Make sure that you support. Make sure that you donate by texting at 9999 or to the Prime Minister Flood Relief Fund. The account number is D12164. Till the next time, look after yourselves. Good morning.